Warrior Prophet Moroni must preserve the history of his fallen nation while being hunted by a ruthless tyrant.
Where is the brave general now?
From Freestyle Releasing and Great Scott Entertainment comes
the memory of my God,
The Oath.
my faith and my freedom, my wife and my son.
The Oath, now playing in theaters. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. More information is available at oathmovie.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Michelle Rowe.
Well, I-15 across the corridor is still crash-free, looking at good speed. Seeing a little bit of slowing, though. This is on Bangerter Highway, southbound around 9800 South. Western Nut Company holiday gift centers are located in Layton Hills, Newgate in Ogden, Shops at Southtown in Sandy, Fashion Place Mall in Murray, and University Place in Orem. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather partly cloudy, but with air quality decreasing today and tomorrow, and the high will get up around 50 degrees. Our next chance for snow is Saturday, and Christmas looks like it'll be cold and dry. And right now, we're at 54 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The headlines today: after meetings in Egypt, Hamas has announced publicly that it will not release more hostages until Israel stops its military campaign in Gaza completely. So does this turn mean that all hope for getting those hostages back is fading or over? What does it mean for the trajectory of the war? It's time to get beyond the headlines. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, we do want to get just past the headlines of all of this, and really grateful to have joining us on the program today Cliff May is the founder and president of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. And Cliff, so grateful to have you on the program. Give us kind of your high-level assessment. Obviously, Hamas coming out and saying no more hostage releases until the military campaign is stopped in Gaza. Give us your current sense beyond the headlines.
Yeah, it's good to be with you. I would say that Hamas looks upon these hostages as nothing more than chips that it can play. Best to play them alive. It can play them dead as well. It doesn't want to. It wants to see how much it can get for them. What it really wants is for even as it is sending missiles, launching missiles into Israel at Tel Aviv, actually within the last few hours, even as it is shooting Israelis anywhere it can and trying to trap them with IEDs. It's saying we want the Israelis to stop firing on us and let us go. And it figures it's got a lot of support in the UN and a lot of various countries and what we, I think, wrongly call the international community. So it's saying I'm not going to give any hostages away just for a humanitarian ceasefire. I can't make that enough to my advantage. I want the Israelis to stop right now and let me go back to ruling Gaza. And I don't think the Israelis are going to accept that.
Yeah, clearly, and it is very interesting. Obviously, the messaging and the communication strategy, as well as the military strategies, are clearly coming into a major clash there. We know that on Monday, the U.S. and Israeli intelligence chiefs met with the Qatari prime minister, trying to, again, push to see if there was a way around hostages and aid and so on. Give us a sense of what you're hearing in that space.
So the Qataris, I believe, have been very false friends to us. About a year ago, President Biden designated the Qataris as a major non-NATO ally. That's a very important designation. That should mean they're our good friends. They're hosting, and they have long been hosting and supporting and financing Hamas. But the idea there was, okay, maybe they can at least mitigate Hamas. But they didn't manage to do that. They didn't give us advance warning that Hamas was going to invade and commit the slaughters and rapes and child stealing that it did on October 7th. It hasn't been able to mitigate or moderate them in any other way. But we continue to play with them because they say, well, let me see what can we do to get some hostages out? Maybe, again, in exchange for humanitarian ceasefires, temporary ceasefires, we can do something. You have had that happen at times. but they are supporters of terrorism, and so they shouldn't be what they are. But for right now, that's the way that the Americans and that's the way that the Israelis, for the most part, are, I don't want to say negotiating with Hamas, even though I put negotiating in quotes. Keep in mind that there are key leaders of Hamas. They are either in tunnels under Gaza or they are living in five-star hotels in Qatar, in the capital of Doha, and some also, by the way, in Turkey. I think over the longer term, this situation has to be addressed.
Yeah, it is one of those. We've often referred to Qatar as both the arsonist and firefighter in this situation, in that they're trying to be the heroes on one end, but they're lighting a whole lot of fires that they're trying to then put out. And to me,
exactly,
whether it's having the Hamas leaders living in Qatari residences or having their finances go through Qatar, I think all of those are really part of the complexities. I wanted to get your perspective as well in terms of the humanitarian aid going in. You so rightly pointed out Hamas is not interested in any of that other than as a chip to play or a card to play in this whole thing. John Kirby was quick to point out today that there's actually been more aid going through the Israeli border space than through Egypt now.
Mm-hmm.
How does that change the dynamic and kind of the messaging warfare?
Well, of course, the problem is, and we've seen videos of this very clearly, that the aid goes in and it's meant to go to non-combatants, to civilians, but Hamas is very happy to steal it and take it down into the tunnels. And those tunnels were built to protect Hamas combatants, and not to while Hamas combatants are protected above by human shields, by civilians. The Israelis don't want more. The Israelis are perfectly happy with humanitarian aid going to non-combatants, to civilians, to people who have no weapons in their hands. But they're not thrilled when the money or the fuel or whatever it is goes into the tunnels so that the Hamas leaders and combatants can stay there longer and more comfortably. Obviously, that's not what they want. And of course, they don't want more weapons going in. The Israelis were kind of duped. The Israelis, I don't think the Israelis, despite as good as their intelligence has been, understood the extent to which weapons and ammunition and other supplies were going into these tunnels. Because here we are, 70-odd days into this war, and there are still missiles being fired by Hamas, sometimes from humanitarian spaces, sometimes from next to mosques and schools, still being fired into Israel. And there's still plenty of ammunition that the Hamas combatants have. I think the Israelis have to stick with their mission, and their mission is to strip Hamas of all its military capabilities and kill all the Hamas leaders or arrest them that they can find there in Gaza. That needs to be accomplished. And people should remember, people keep asking for a ceasefire. You can have a ceasefire tomorrow if Hamas would release the hostages, come out of the tunnels, put down their weapons, and wave a little white flag. That's all it would take.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing. And I think yesterday Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave his most forceful statement of what the options were for Hamas, and that is to surrender or to die, and being very clear in terms of all of that. Give us a little sense, Cliff, just in our last few moments here, in terms of the internal dynamics going on inside of Israel. Obviously, the Netanyahu government under immense pressure over the course of 2023 regarding changes to the judiciary. You had a lot of big protests that lasted for weeks. How are things shaping up? There's really been no daylight between even his arch rivals as it relates to the war against Hamas. But give us any other sense in terms of how is this sizing up and what does this look like moving forward?
So you're absolutely right. Last year, I would argue with all due respect that the Israelis took their eye off the ball. They were fighting among themselves over rather arcane things having to do with judicial reform, how much power the Supreme Court should have, vis-a-vis the parliament. Interesting questions. People can have different views on them, but they were really at each other's throats. I think that was one reason why Hamas thought this was a good, and Hamas's patron in Tehran thought this may be a good time to go ahead and attack the Israelis. They may have their guard down, and in fact, they obviously did. There's a war cabinet, and that's a unity government. I think 10/7 was a terrible wake-up call for a lot of Israelis that, hey, we need to concentrate on our enemies, not on the differences among us. What happens after this war? Hard to say. From the various Israelis I've talked to, some they say, look, we do understand that we have to find some compromises in terms of our other differences, so that we can have deterrence of our enemies, and we have many, almost all of them, of course, being clients of the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's Hamas, that's Hezbollah in the north, which is a real threat, and there could be another war that breaks out there. That's the Houthi rebels that the U.S. is now mobilizing to try to stop from interfering with shipping in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandab. It's the group called Islamic Jihad, and it's the various Shia militias that have attacked American forces in the Middle East more than 100 times over the past 2 months. You know, the head of the octopus is in Tehran. Yeah. The head of the octopus still sleeps soundly at night.
Yeah. Fantastic perspective. Cliff Mays, the founder and president of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Always appreciate you and your colleagues who give us such great in-depth insight way beyond the headlines. So important to have the right kind of conversation about a crucial part of the world. Cliff, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Again, that's Cliff May, founder and president of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. And it's easy to rock along with a lot of the headlines on, far spectrums as it relates to what's going on in the Middle East. This is the crucial conversation to get to the real issues, and more importantly, what's the path forward? A lot of complexities, a lot of delicate dances when it comes to the diplomatic space, but the firm resolve to defeat the terrorists has to be central to all of that.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Christmas memories for me always centered around BYU football bowl games. Think about the crazy finishes. Those were always amazing.
A Christmas memory from KSL News Radio.
For me, Mitch, I'll never forget in the 90s getting a Nintendo 64 with Mario Kart. I played that so dang much.
The new video game console, and then you're listening to Cougar football. It was always an amazing time growing up.
Merry Christmas from Mitch, Matt, and Cougar Nation, and everyone at KSL News Radio.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money. But do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At Capital Wealth Advisors, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the Capital Wealth Advisors team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 801-210-5500. That's 801-210-5500. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
When you want a brand new kitchen, there's nothing to it. There's a brand new way to do it. 3-day kitchen and bath. It's all about time.
3 days or less
at 3-day kitchen and bath.
It's about time someone offered you a complete custom bathroom designed for stylish independent living in just 3 days. It's about time someone offered you a written, unconditional 100% satisfaction guarantee on both their quality and craftsmanship. It's about time someone helped you design a safe and stylish bathroom with the luxury of a walk-in tub or the convenience of an easy entry shower. Whether you have an immediate safety need or you just want to prepare for an independent future in your own home, check them out on the web at 3daykitchen.com or call 3-Day Kitchen and Bath for your free design consultation today. 3-Day Kitchen and Bath. It's about time.
It's about time.
3 days or less
at 3-Day Kitchen and Bath.
Jeff Kaplan here for my good friends at Advanced Window Products. Jake Weber and Nate Orchard are spreading the holiday cheer with their biggest sale of the year. If the wind whistles through your windows, if you want a fresh new look for your number one investment, your home, call Advanced Window Products and take advantage of this incredible end-of-year sale. Replace all of your windows and frames, and you get $2,500 off. But that's not all. You get a free premium glass upgrade. Insulate your home against the cold with double-pane windows and stylish frames, any style, any color, and they're built custom right here at their headquarters in Salt Lake City for 37 years. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. Plus, an additional $2,500 off and a free premium glass upgrade. You can save now, pay later, so take advantage. Call now, Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
Hello, car donation hotline.
Hi, I'd like to donate a car to the Utah Kidney Foundation. Are you in Utah?
Awesome. Let's get some info and we'll send you a tow truck.
But I want my car donation to benefit my neighbor in Farmington who needs a transplant. Are you in Utah?
That's a no. I'm in SoCal, but you're still donating to charity.
What charity?
Does it matter?
Yes, I want my donation to stay in Utah.
Righteous dude. You need to call tow cars in Utah. Locals only, am I right?
Oh, yeah. I remember tow cars with a K like kidney. It's on a billboard somewhere. TOWKARS.org. That's it. Towcars.org.
If you'd like your vehicle donation to help Utah kidney patients in the Beehive State, please use the web address on their billboard, towcars.org, to donate your old car or truck. That's TOWK like kidney, ARS. Towcars.org.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, what seemed like a holiday disaster has turned into a Christmas miracle for families in Utah County. Second, Bountiful City crews working to fix a water main break along 300 South. Third, the house where 4 college students were murdered in Moscow, Idaho, is about to be demolished. Right now, 53 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, this week, the immigration issues and border problems are front and center. We have yet to reach a border deal in Congress, who has left the building for the rest of the year. Meanwhile, border crossings are up, and immigration court backlogs have gotten to a staggering number. We're going to get to that, where we are, and what I still think is the solution to all of this. So earlier this week, Chuck Schumer said that border deal's not going to happen until the new year.
We've made a lot of progress. This is just a difficult issue, both in coming up with an agreement and then drafting it, because we haven't drafted things like this before. But I'm optimistic that we can get things done when we get back. Our goal is, as soon as we get back, to get something done.
So I'm going to disagree partially with Chuck Schumer on this one. They know exactly what to do for this. This is not something new. This is something that they've been not dealing with for decades now. And both Senator Schumer and Senator Mitch McConnell, the minority leader for the Republicans, have been there for the entirety of this problem and this process, or lack of process. In fact, I thought it was almost a little too cute by half that Senator Schumer and Senator McConnell issued a joint statement before they left the building for the holidays. They said bipartisan border security negotiations are essential to the Senate's effort to address critical national security priorities. Our colleagues are making encouraging progress on this front. They continued, challenging issues remain, but we're committed to addressing needs at the southern border and helping allies and partners confront serious threats in Israel, Ukraine, and the Indo-Pacific. The Senate will not let these national security challenges go unanswered. So this is the linking of all of these issues together: Israel, Ukraine, Indo-Pacific, and the southern border and immigration. The two senators, the two leaders, the majority and the minority leader, concluded saying, as negotiators work through remaining issues, it is our hope that their efforts will allow the Senate to take swift action. I think you lost the potential for swift action 3 decades ago. Swift action on the National Security Supplemental Bill early in the new year. Now, a very fine, very nicely crafted political statement from the Democrats and the Republicans. does nothing to actually deal with the actual issue of the day. And we know that Customs and Border Patrol sources have confirmed that more than 12,000 people crossed into the United States through the southern border on Tuesday alone. About that same number on Wednesday. That's a small town, or a semi-large town. 25,000 people in 48 hours? How can you possibly deal with that? Now, here's a number that should cause your head to spin and your blood to boil just a little bit. The immigration court backlog, so this is the backlog of the actual immigration court processing people's cases that have come into the country. The backlog, not the current load, the backlog is 3 million individuals. So basically the backlog is the state of Utah. So imagine if everybody in this state had to go appear before an immigration court. Because of that, some of those who enter illegally are being released into the country with a court date in 2029, 5 years away. And my guess is they won't make those dates either. So where does that put us? I want to go back to a conversation I had with Democratic Representative Abigail Spanberger from Virginia. Earlier this year, she told me that both sides are oversimplifying the immigration issue for political purposes alone.
You know, it's very easy on one side of the aisle. People are saying, it's a crisis, everything's terrible. So then on the other side of the aisle, people are saying, no, you're vilifying immigrants. And the answer is kind of everybody's just oversimplifying. The very real truth is there are many vulnerable people who want to come to the United States and should be able to do so through the asylum process and file for asylum if they're eligible. There are many people who want to come to the United States and work here. Those things can be true. At the same time, it can also be the case that there are drug trafficking organizations and criminal networks that are trafficking people and drugs and guns southward, and it's causing death and devastation.
That was Representative Spanberger, again, Democrat from Virginia, and she's spot on that you can have those truths. It's not polar opposites on everything. You can have a secure border, and you can have a good, solid legal system, and you can have compassion for asylum seekers. All of those things are congruent, and that's the problem. The problem is those in the political process are preventing that conversation from happening. So while it is very nice to have a year-end statement, a bipartisan statement from the Republican Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, and the Democratic Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, it's empty. It's completely empty and void of substance. Here's what I know, and I still firmly and passionately believe this, that we could solve 94.5% of the immigration issue in this country in a single afternoon on the floor of the House and the Senate. And I believe that because everybody agrees. The Democrats that I speak to, they agree. The Republicans that I talk to, they agree. We need to have a secure border. We need to have an updated 21st century immigration system that makes it easier to come to the country legally than it does to come here illegally. We need to know who comes in. We need to know who goes out. I often use the example, if Disneyland can tell me where my family is in the park at any moment over 3 days, surely the greatest country on earth can figure out who comes in and who goes out. And then some people will oversimplify it and they'll say, yeah, but what about the 10 million or 15 million that are already here illegally? What do you do about that? Well, what I believe is if we fix the first problems, if we actually update the antiquated system, if we actually secure the border, then that number goes down drastically. And so let's say it's 5 million. And out of those 5 million, maybe half of them are thugs and bad guys. The American people know what to do with thugs and bad guys, and we can handle that. And the other half, let's say they're just really good, compassionate issues. There's no one more compassionate on the planet than the American people. We know what to do with people who are here seeking asylum because they've been persecuted, because they've been victimized in whatever way. We know how to do this. And so I'm very exhausted and exasperated by nicely crafted statements before members of Congress leave the building to go on vacation for 3 weeks, when the hard work and heavy lifting just needs to be done. We need to set the politics aside in all of this. You can have compassion and you can have rule of law. Those are compatible principles in this country, and we can get it done and we can do it better. But we're going to have to expect more, not less. No more shoulder shrugging from members of Congress. It's time to square the shoulders and actually get this thing resolved. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about more solutions to real issues coming up. Joseph Grinney from the Other Side Village and the Other Side Academy is going to join us coming up next on Inside Sources. Stick around.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour, a suspect in a triple homicide of 3 residents of Salt Lake County last year turns out to already be serving time for another shooting. KSL News Radio's Jessica Lowell has more.
Cesar Sevilla Aleman from Orem is serving 5 years to life for a shooting in September last year at a rodeo. But now KSL.com reports West Valley police think he's responsible for a triple homicide. The 3 Salt Lake County men went missing in March last year, and a year later, police say cadaver dogs found their remains near the Merker trailhead in Tooele County.
West Valley police say a witness told them the suspect was overheard telling others about a debt one of the victims owed him. That witness says he allegedly confessed to taking the 3 men up the mountain, shooting them, and burying the bodies. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden and the President of Mexico spoke this morning, talking about the ongoing efforts to manage the unprecedented flow of migrants in the Western Hemisphere. National Security Council official John Kirby talked about what's next.
President Biden has asked Secretary of State Tony Blinken, Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas, and White House Homeland Security Advisor Liz Sherwood Randall to travel to Mexico in coming days to meet with President Lopez Obrador and his team to discuss further actions that can be taken together to address current border challenges.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day now 249 points. The NASDAQ is up 160. And our KSL weather, we'll see some sunshine, but also see the pollution building up again. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Call the pros at Yes and take $50 off any heating, cooling, plumbing, or electrical system repair over $200. Get fast relief and $50 off any repair from Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. The same great people providing the same great service that Utah has counted on for more than 45 years. Visit theyesmancan.com to schedule your appointment.
O'Reilly. The O'Reilly Auto Parts Holiday Gift Guide is here. If you're struggling with gift ideas, we have several options for gifts under $20, like a digital tire gauge, screwdriver sets, LED work lights, and more. Our professional parts people will help you pick out the perfect gift for that hard-to-buy-for person. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts or shop O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Nothing slows my little girl down, except a stuffy nose.
Mommy.
That's why I use Sinex Children's Saline from Vicks. Sinex instantly clears mucus in everyday stuffy little noses with a gentle, ultra-fine mist designed for kids. Just Sinex? Breathe. Her stuffy nose is gone for now. And so is she.
Sinex Children's Saline. Sinex, breathe. Use as directed, keep out of reach of children.
I was crossing the street when I met the love of my life. I chased after her. Nothing would stand in my way. Not the dog walker, nor the hot dog vendor. Finally reaching her, I asked, What do you call that amazing smell?
It's Gain Flings.
Gain Flings. My love had a name, but more importantly, it had a scent.
Fall in love with Gain Flings. Seriously good scent. Gain Flings with 50% more freshness ingredients versus leading bargain detergent.
I'm a big believer in investing into what the wealthiest people in the world invest into. But it's not easy to know exactly what that is, and it hasn't always been possible for regular folks like you and I. But that's changing. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and if you've done a good job acquiring some assets, now is the time to consider private equity. Private equity is ownership of private companies that aren't traded on the stock market and in most cases are very exclusive. Examples could include ownership of apartments or nursing homes, dental practices, solar farms, you name it. Why do so many billionaires invest into private equity? Because of historically low correlation to the stock market and historically higher returns. If you have a goal with your portfolio but aren't there yet, call Trajan Wealth today. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. May require accreditation.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Michelle Rowe.
Overall, I-15 really quiet, seeing just a little bit of slowing if you're headed southbound through the Santa Quin area. Also looking at some delays on Bangerter Highway approaching 9800 South. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather partly cloudy with air quality decreasing today and tomorrow. The high will get up around 50 degrees, and our next chance for snow is Saturday. Christmas looks like it'll be cold and dry. And right now, 53 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio. 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Chronic homelessness is a problem plaguing American cities and even right here in the state of Utah, a problem that needs proper time, resources, and attention paid to actually solve it in a meaningful way. But when it comes to really addressing the problem, are we having the right kind of conversation about the right things? We have to get to the different conversation if we want to get to better, long-term, sustainable solutions. And someone we always turn to get to the root cause of these kinds of challenges, Joseph Grenny, of course, New York Times bestselling author, one of the founders of the Other Side Academy and the Other Side Village. And Joseph, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Boyd. Happy to be here.
So I want to focus today on those who have been chronically unhoused, those who have been homeless for a long time. There's been so many blue ribbon panels and so many different kinds of conversations, all well-intentioned, all well-meaning. We've been pretty slim in terms of the impact and the results. Talk to us about what kind of conversation we need to have to get to a different kind of result.
Well, the first, Boyd, I think, is that our fundamental paradigm for helping is broken. When you continue to pour more resources into a system and get less result, you really ought to be asking about the fundamental premises of the system itself. Our current system is based on an asset model. So when you're trying to help a human being, you first have to clarify, do they have asset problems or behavior problems or a combination of the two? An asset problem is where my roof leaks and I'm in a crisis, and somebody coming over and helping me fix my roof fixes my problem. So an asset problem is clean. If my problem is that my house burned down and I've lost everything and the insurance is only going to cover a certain amount of it, then I have an asset problem. And people being generous and donating and giving can make an enormous difference in my life. But the second class of problems, which is much more complex, is behavior problems. This is where some of the asset problems in my life are caused by choices I make, by behaviors that I have. And the challenge that we have in helping people is if you misclassify the problem, if you believe it's an asset problem and you treat it as that, and it's actually a behavior problem, you actually make it worse. You start to become a part of the problem. So if I've got a son who's a drug addict and I continue every time he collapses to bail him out of jail and to hire another lawyer and to let him live in my basement and to subsidize his lifestyle, in effect, I'm putting a needle in his arm. I become part of the problem. And so when you look at chronic homelessness, it is complex one of the challenges is many of the complexities come back ultimately to somebody making a decision to change some really difficult things in their lives. This is not to say we shouldn't help. This is not an argument for saying that we ought to turn a blind eye. In fact, it's an argument for helping in a much more intimate and intense way.
Oh, I love that, and I think that's where we have to get it. It's so easy to give that coat, to do that thing, and we have to get to where we're making sure, one, we're not creating entitlement, that we're making sure that we're not just making things tolerable, but that we're making them temporary. And take us through some of the things that are going on. We've been so excited about what's been going on, and obviously at the Other Side Academy, we've been chronicling that extraordinary transformative space. And now with the Other Side Village, give us an update on that and the partners, the people that are helping to create this space where you really can create that transformational moment that will really send people and generations to come on a completely different direction.
Yeah, the update is wonderful news, and it's such an expression of who Utah is. So people have come forward in droves and contributed the capital needed to build this 400-home community for the chronically homeless. And I think the reason they've come out in such large numbers is because they understand that the Other Side Village is about helping people who have both asset and behavior challenges and acknowledging that unapologetically, recognizing that deep and profound change in lifestyle is required if you're trying to help somebody who might have been living on the streets for 5 to 10 years. So the current status is the site work is being done at 1850 West Indiana Avenue. We'll have, by the end of next year, close to 80 homes finished on site, and we'll have people moving in coming out of what's called the prep school. So the difference between the village and so many other efforts to help is we have conversations with people as they come in about the kind of changes they need to make, about the kind of personal lifestyle choices that are going to need to change if they want to be sustainably successful. They come to a prep school, which we now have 9 people already in that are off the streets, and helping them to take a look at their lives in a peer community. Nobody can help somebody who's struggling with schizophrenia, drug addiction, bipolar disorder, disordered life, financial challenges. Nobody can help people like that better than those who have had those exact same struggles and are just 6, 12, 24, maybe a few hundred months away from that. But they can lead you through exactly what it took in a way that is honest and accountable. So I sit in circles now regularly. In fact, I'm sitting outside the prep school as we speak and listening to these 9 people who are doing harder work to change their personal lives than most of us will ever appreciate. They're confronting problems of dishonesty and laziness. They're confronting problems of isolation and inability to sustain relationships or hostility and interpersonal problem solving in the way of learning to live in a healthy community. And these are the kinds of behavioral challenges that will throw them right back onto the street if they aren't addressed front and center. So they're now in a safe peer environment that will be self-supporting, self-reliant, and beautiful, that's going to contribute ultimately to the neighborhood that the village is adjacent to. And they're doing that kind of hard work.
It's so inspiring to watch that transformation happen. And you mentioned, Joseph, that you've had a host of people who recognize this deeply Utah model approach of not just throwing money at something and not just doing the asset thing as you described it, but are committed to a different way to make sure that both the behavioral issues and the asset issues can be dealt with in a way that actually gives someone a real path moving forward.
Yeah, that's exactly the case. And, you know, I and most of us, I think, wring our hands when you pass somebody on the streets who's yelling at a stop sign or something and see the kind of awful shape that their life is in. In fact, I was down by Pioneer Park recently, and somebody I know who's on the street down there is eating out of a garbage can. And this is somebody who has so many complicated challenges, and I'm the last person on earth that can properly appreciate how to help this person out. The person who's most able to do that is somebody who has lived that same lifestyle, and that's what we have in the Other Side Village and in the Other Side Academy. The graduates of the Other Side Academy are now village coaches. These are people who collectively have spent about 60 years in homelessness, and so they know where it's at. If you bring somebody into the house who's struggling with schizophrenia, in fact, I had a conversation with one of our current residents in the prep school who struggles with schizophrenia, voices in his head, things that I will never properly appreciate. But I watched a conversation between him and one of his colleagues where he was confronted about the fact that, A, he has schizophrenia, and B, that he uses his schizophrenia, that he leverages it, that he's able to not be held responsible, that he uses it as an excuse. So both are true. He has that condition, and he needs help. He needs proper mental health support. And he also has to learn how to take responsibility for the parts of his life that he can. And no one can help you find that line between accountability and actual need better than somebody who has confronted it themselves.
No question about that. And give us just in our last minute or so here, Joseph. I know there's been groups like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have been helpful in making sure that, again, those things are in place so you have that preparatory school for people to really get things going behaviorally, and then they can get that asset of a place they can actually call home. Give us some sense of the scale of that, what that looks like, and why that's encouraging for what you plan in 2024.
My goodness, the resources, the financial resources, of course, are needed. And organizations like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who has stepped forward in a really significant way to help open the prep school, to help establish the first phase of the village, we couldn't be doing it without them. But it is literally hundreds of people that have come forward. Last Christmas, one family said that their grandchildren decided to forego gifts so that they could put the money into a home for somebody in this community, because they know that home will have rent paid on it, will be cared for, will be part of transforming somebody's lives. So really substantial help from organizations like the church and many other individual philanthropists, and many people that don't consider themselves philanthropists, but that believe that behavior problems and asset problems need to be solved in this kind of way are the reason we are where we are right now.
Fantastic insight. This is a transformation at its finest. This should be the model to the nation and everywhere else on the planet. Joseph Grenny, we always appreciate you joining us. We look forward to really doing some deep dives as we get into the new year on what's happening, continuing to happen at the Other Side Academy and now at the Other Side Village. This is great work. And also, if you want to catch a great piece today at Deseret.com, Joseph really goes through in detail the right path to deal with chronic homelessness as a behavioral problem. Joseph, thanks for your extraordinary work and leadership and your contribution to our community.
We wouldn't be here without your advocacy and support, Boyd. Merry Christmas to you and everybody.
All right. Again, that's Joseph Grenny from the Other Side Academy and the Other Side Village. This is transformative work. Be part of it. Check it out. It is inspiring at the highest level. It's what the Utah model is really all about. We'll be right back.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed? Because no two people sleep the same. Only the Sleep Number smart bed lets you each choose your individual firmness and comfort, your Sleep Number setting. The Climate 360 smart bed is so smart it actively cools or warms up to 13 degrees on either side for your ideal sleep temperature. And now save 40% on the Sleep Number Special Edition Smart Bed ends Sunday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the NFL.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Hi there, it's Scott from Pentatonics. So from the beginning of our journey in music, the foundation has been music education. It's so incredibly important that we continue to show kids the importance of music in our schools, in our homes, and even in the car. Music is such a powerful expression of emotion and individuality, and we are responsible for keeping the love for music alive. This message is courtesy of the United States Air Force.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
We are thrilled, as always, to have a dear friend of the show, Gainalyn Condi, join us on the line. She's an author, a speaker, an influencer, an advocate extraordinaire, and a careful steward of relationships and people all around the planet. And Gainalyn, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, friend.
Hey, as we get close to Christmas and the holidays and New Year's, we want to do just a little mental health check-up and check-in to make sure we're doing the right things, not only to make sure we're in a good space, but that we can better be in a space to steward some of those friendships, relationships, and connections we have in our communities.
I'm so grateful to have this conversation. I just have felt inundated the last few days and weeks with messages from loved ones that have either lost someone recently to suicide or have a loved one that's attempted and is getting treatment now. And so I just feel like it's an important time of year when we have a lot of joy, a sense of everyone is celebrating, being more aware that each of us is battling sometimes some very personal and private struggles.
Yeah, no question about it. Let's dive into some of those practical, tactical things that we can do, again, both so we're functioning from a position of strength and so we can better help those around us. You've given us some really good things to kind of move down, really starting with just being aware of what's going on inside of you.
Well, one of the things I love in having conversations with you specifically is your curiosity, and I think and also that you lead out in compassion. And so I would just say flip that around to yourself. Can you get curious about what you're feeling? Can you just notice them? Sometimes we want to judge them. We want to identify and then have a cause and effect, decision-making process immediately. Instead, I invite listeners to just be compassionate about noticing your feelings, not judging them, and get curious around them. Sometimes we don't even know, and we sometimes limit our feelings to the top 3, which is sad, mad, and angry. And there's about as many emotions as there are emojis. And so just get really curious that maybe you don't have words specifically to define, but if you can get curious and be compassionate about noticing your feelings, I think that's the first step.
Oh, I love that. And I think we do need more in our lives, a passion for compassion, starting with self-compassion, because it's so easy to just, keep racing and chasing across the surface. And sometimes we're suppressing some of those things for ourselves because I got a really long to-do list. I have a whole bunch of things at work and Christmas is coming and we just kind of play all of those things through. And so being compassionate enough towards yourself so that you can actually be aware of what is actually going on, because it's only then that you can actually get to the second piece of this, which is getting to that self-care.
Right. And I feel like especially at this busy time of year, it can't be optional. It has to be mandatory. And so just like you're scheduling the holiday parties or the baking or the shopping last minute, can you make sure to mandatorily require some self-care? I did this for myself yesterday. I literally just attended a funeral for someone that died by suicide, and there's been a lot of messages that I've been receiving and fielding, and I could tell yesterday it was mandatory that I kind of disconnected and did some self-care. And that can look like a variety of things. It doesn't have to necessarily be that you're at the spa, which I'm a big fan of that. I did get a massage yesterday, and I'm a fan of being at the spa. But rest is essential. Exercise for me, movement is about moving through some of those emotions that we just talked about. When I move my body, some of those emotions can move. And then especially at this time of year where the sun sets sooner than I prefer, light therapy is a really good tool as we head into the winter months. Today's the first day of winter solstice, so that's a good time to consider that your self-care can look like a variety of tools.
Yeah, and sometimes it is just being still with yourself. I always say the most important meetings you're ever going to sit in are the ones you have with yourself, and whether that is during a massage at the spa or a walk or just sitting and listening to some nice music or looking at a piece of art is such an important part. And then you always talk about making sure we have a practical, tactical component to all of this, getting a plan, especially when it comes to those things that we know are most likely to happen, some of those trigger moments or experiences that are likely to come. What's the best way to get a real solid game plan around that?
Well, I love what you just suggested, that being still, that's one of my favorite tools. Sometimes, just to backtrack a little bit, we believe that if we go to enough therapy, we read enough books, and we have enough tools in the toolbox that we won't get triggered. Triggers are teachers, and they're going to come up.
Yeah.
Stress is going to come up. And if you're dealing with some grief that's really heightened during the holidays because all of the memories are kind of flooding back with the sights and the sounds and the smells of the season, realize that triggers are going to happen. You can't, prepare yourself away from the trigger. But sometimes the sitting still, one of my favorite tools to use when the stress and the triggers come up in my plan is to step away from whatever I'm doing and go meditate for a few minutes, and that's just some deep breathing. I also love to have an SOS friend list, so develop those now. Text to someone today and just say, hey, before we go into the holiday weekend, can you be on my SOS list? And what I have found is that if you already have those top 3 people that you know you're going to reach out to and that you invite them to reach out to you, then if you're at that family gathering or a trigger comes up or you're feeling overwhelmed or you don't like how you just offloaded on someone that you love because, you've just had the straw come and break the back, you already have a plan in place. And I think that's crucial because sometimes when we back ourselves into a corner emotionally or we realize we've chandeliered a lot of emotions because we've been processing more than we realized we were processing, all of a sudden we snap at someone or we find ourselves disconnected from this experience that we've been planning for a month to have, and we don't even feel the joy of that. And then one of my favorite things is journaling. And I'm not talking about the journal you pass down to the grandkids. I'm talking about the journal that gets thrown in the trash.
You burn, yeah.
Yes, and burns. And I ceremonially burn those once a year as well. They're my processing journals where I write out my prayer to God when I don't even know what the words are.
Yeah.
And so those are just some tools that I have on my plan, literally prepared before I'm in the trigger.
Yeah, I think that's so important that you have the plan, and I love that part of the plan is people, that you identify ahead of time. Who can I text? Who can I call? Who's that, 2 or 3 folks that I need to make sure that I can connect with quickly if I need to. And then finally, you just want to round things out with that just connection. That interconnectedness can be such an important point, regardless if it's dealing with our own emotion or dealing with someone else who may have withdrawn. Walk us through that real quickly.
Well, I think there's a balance from our first tip, which was to compassionately notice your feelings. Sometimes we can become so self-focused that we're not as self-aware of what and who is around us. Today I was sitting at my desk at my home office, and I always know when my mailman comes, my postal worker comes and delivers the mail, and during this time of year, he comes twice a day, and I had a little treat that I was waiting for him to come, and I ran it out to him. My emotions were on the surface because I had just gotten another message about someone in crisis mental health-wise, and we had this really great one-on-one catch-up conversation. He's been my postal worker for 10 years and has lived life, via the mail of my life. But it was a very connecting conversation around mental health and around his life and my life. And so don't make it so complicated that connection, those opportunities are around us all the time, from the person standing behind us in line. I was just at the post office. You can see a theme here, mailing a package to my daughter that is living out of state, and the line was super long, and all the moms were trying to, corral their kids and keep everyone distracted and happy. And I felt myself stressed by the delay and realized I could put my phone down and connect with someone in line with me. And by the time it was my turn, I was kind of sad that it was my turn because I had connected with these two strangers in line. And so don't make connection and support of one another super complex. Sometimes we hesitate to reach out and check on someone that comes to our mind and heart because we don't know how to fix their problems. But that's not what connection's about.
Yeah.
It's about listening. It's about sitting with someone. It's about really just letting them know that their name was on your heart. And that connection can be life-saving.
Yeah, and that connection is everything. Gainland Conde, best of the best, always helps us think deeper, and think again about what we think we know when it comes to our mental health and really thriving. That's the name of the game. Gainland, thank you so much for making time for us on a very busy day.
Merry Christmas, friend.
Merry Christmas. Thank you. All right, that wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Don't go anywhere. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. Hour number 2 is coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. West Valley Police believe they've identified the killer in the case of 3 men whose bodies were found in Tooele County. Cesar Sevilla Aleman is already in prison, serving time for a shooting that happened at a rodeo earlier this year. The bodies of the 3 men were found after cadaver dogs alerted in the area near the Merker Trailhead. Well, scams happen all year round, but they can be more prevalent during the holidays. KSL News Radio's Heather Kelly says you need to be vigilant about everything from texts to shopping on fake websites.
Scammers are out to get money. They try to get your personal information by saying they're from a government agency, pretending to be a shipping company that can't deliver a package, or even setting up fake shopping websites. The attorney from the Federal Trade Commission, Bobby Tonelli, says they will also try to get you to buy gift cards to pay for fake fees.
You can learn about current holiday scams by going to ftc.gov/consumer alerts. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. 15 people died in a shooting at a university in Prague today. Police say the shooter was a man from a village outside the capital city who was a student at Charles University. Here's ABC's Lama Hassan.
An email was reportedly sent to staff warning them of the shooting, telling them to stay put, telling them not to go anywhere, saying if you are in your offices, lock them and place furniture in front of the door, turn off the lights, it said. So essentially barricading themselves in the classrooms.
And your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average near the close of trading up 321 points today, and the NASDAQ is up 185. Our KSL weather looks like we'll see sun, but also the inversion building back up. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Where the steepest terrain meets the deepest snow. Snowbird is for the dedicated, those who seek a mountain experience beyond the greens, blues, and black diamonds. Averaging 500 inches of dry and light powder, unmatched steeps, and endless acres to explore. Snowbird is Utah's top powder getaway. Now with a Snowbird and Save lodging discount, receive 20% off on lift tickets, rentals, fast tracks, and more. When you stay slopeside at Snowbird, elevate your adventure with next level lodging and skiing this season by visiting Snowbird.com.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
God, I'm so stressed about my business not being ready for the holidays.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending the Ooma cloud phone system with auto attendant and more than 35 features.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Starts at $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma. Now you're feeling it. Visit Ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma. Smart communications for the smarter business.
Kidney cars, donate your car today. Tax write-off, hip, 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 hooray. Kidney cars, give your car away. Tax write-off, and you will save today.
The staff of the National Kidney Foundation of Utah would like to wish you a merry holiday season and remind you that it is better to give than receive, but not better than giving and receiving. For example, if you give your car to the Kidney Foundation, you may get a tax deduction. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS with a K. That's 1-800-TOWKARS. To donate your used car to the Kidney Foundation, call 1-800-TOW-CARS with a K. That's 1-800-TOWKARS.
Kidney cars, donate your car today. Tax write-off, hip, 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 hooray!
Call 1-800-TOW-CARS with a K.
Held over due to popular demand. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Save thousands on hot tubs and swim spas. It's a major manufacturer's liquidation of hundreds of in-stock spas. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Hot tubs discounted 40 to 80% to the lowest possible price, starting at $29.99. Free professional delivery. Take possession tomorrow, next week, next month, or next season. The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Sale. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Shop over a dozen models of swim spas from 11 feet to over 19 feet. Swim spas offer low-impact exercise, active family fun, unsurpassed relaxation, and installation in one day. The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Sale. Everything must go. Free parking, free admission. You can't afford to miss this. It's a major manufacturer's liquidation of hundreds of in-stock spas. Friday, noon to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Sale. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Visit hottubandswimspasale.com.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Michelle Rowe.
Well, we do have a situation. This is southbound I-15. We have debris that is in the road. It looks like they tried to move some of that out of the road. It was in the two left lanes. Traffic is still trying to get around that. You're going to back up past 123rd South, and you'll want to move over to the right to get around it. Mortgage rates have fallen. Lower your payment. Find out more at loansbyrick.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 287106. That's loansbyrick.com. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, partly cloudy with air quality decreasing today and tomorrow. The high will get up to 50 degrees, and our next chance for snow is Saturday. Christmas looks like it'll be cold and dry. Actually, we're at 50 degrees right now with partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, 2023 was an eventful year for the country and for the state of Utah, from the war in the Middle East to a special congressional election here at home. As we wrap up the year, it's time to think again about many of the big headlines that we saw during the course of the year. And to do that, we turn to someone who is in charge of a lot of those headlines, editor of the Deseret News, Doug Wilkes. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have in studio with us Doug Wilkes, editor of the Deseret News. And Doug, as we round out the year, there have been a lot of big headlines, and part of your job is to make sure we don't just have great headlines, but we really get down to the essence of a lot of these news stories. And so I want to start first with just what was one of those big news stories of the year that has had you just kind of thinking and rethinking?
Wow. First, Boyd, great to be with you. You talk about elevated conversation. I'm not sure you want me here, but here we are. Politics continues to be a key mover. I guess it always will be, and it's certainly internationally and nationally and locally. That's been a big story. Funding for Ukraine. I had a chance to visit Ukraine earlier this year, see what it means to the people there, and it's very, very personal for them. It's hard to kind of feel the personal impact of something, a war, Russia versus
Actually,
Ukraine.
Yeah, I want to dig into that. Unpack that a little bit for us, because you did have a unique opportunity to. It's not every day you get to go into a war zone, but give us a sense of what you learned and what surprised you during your trip to Ukraine.
What surprised me is it's hard to feel that you're going into a dangerous area. People say, hey, this is dangerous. And then when you hear the sirens, when you spend night after night in a bunker, when you see reports, 25 drones hit, destroyed, but 2 get through, and they hit somewhere, and where they hit has an impact. And just this plea from the public to don't forget us. If America doesn't support us, we're going to lose this war in 3 weeks. I had many people say that. Now, Utah's lawmakers have called for accountability. Certainly there needs to be accountability, but there also needs to be a realization that these decisions impact real people. So I think just the international conflict, and of course Israel, when Hamas attacked Israel, becomes another key flashpoint. And those are certainly the biggest stories of the year, I would think.
Yeah, no question about that. And I think that's such a fascinating thing. I want to shift and go real close to home. We were talking just before we went on air, talking about this whole issue of domestic violence. It actually started with a story at the beginning of the year, but you were commenting, as you often get to that, Doug, and that is how something of a tragedy can become that flashpoint for real change and a different kind of conversation.
Yeah, that it was the first week of January, and in Enoch, Utah, a family of 7 or 8 was killed by the husband, the father, and it was a horrible, horrible incident. And it's hard to say anything good can come out of that, and I don't pretend to do that. But over the course of a year, largely with the help of Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson, domestic violence has come front and center as a topic that needs to be addressed. And so the legislature passed laws for a lethality assessment, so that when there are calls for domestic violence, there's actually steps to kind of look at, well, here's the series of questions, 12, 13 questions that you need to ask to kind of say, is this something that's going to escalate into true violence? So from these past 12 months, the ability to have lethality assessments in every community is there now, and there's more funding needed to continue to help protect men and women.
Yeah. As you look at all the things that you covered at the Deseret News over the course of a year, any big surprises during the course of the year, or anything that was kind of one of those aha moments for you?
Certainly the changes in the political landscape. I think Congressman Chris Stewart resigned to help his wife and family. Celeste Malloy elected. She's going to change the dynamic of that delegation. Did she come out of nowhere? Well, to the public she did, but she's worked in his office, worked in the legal department, and that turf. You know what that feels like back in Washington. Mitt Romney decides not to run. He does a tell-all book with our friend McKay Coppins, and so now, pushing into the new year, you have these stories will continue. Certainly with who gains Romney's seat, former House Speaker Brad Wilson's in that place. We expect a decision from Representative John Curtis, who first said he wasn't going to run, but now it looks like he might. So, and then Sean Reyes in the AG's office and the controversies that surrounded them. These are stories that people get tired of hearing about, but they're very important, actually.
Yeah, they are important, and they get to real discussions. And I just have to point out, last Friday, we actually were joined in studio by Representative Celeste Malloy. And after one of her first contentious votes in the House of Representatives on the National Defense Authorization Act, which you reported in the Deseret News, split the delegation. 3 voted for it, 3 voted against it. And I love the fact, it was so refreshing, that the first thing she wanted to do was to come and explain her vote. Because you may not agree with my vote. Here's why I did. Here's my process. And I hope that's something we see more of in 2024, because I can disagree with someone who represents me. I can even say, I wish you'd voted different. But if they'll take the time to explain that to me, here's how I got to my decision on that vote, that really changes the dynamic of our discussion, so that we're not just chasing counterpoint stuff that's good for political fundraising, but not real good for the dialogue in the country.
Well, I think that's true, and I think the congressional delegation and our local politicians are trying to take their message to the public. We try to put it into perspective. Why are they doing this? Is this a calculated move for money, or is it something that's actually altruistic and something they believe in? I would say Governor Cox does videos going to the public. Newly re-elected Mayor Erin Mendenhall of Salt Lake City, she goes on Facebook or Twitter and she's giving you a message. And she was out at the airport, last week talking about, look, this is what's happening at the airport. So on the one hand, that can be a competitor to a news organization, but it puts the message out there and allows us to get information and put it into context.
Yeah, and then finally, as we come full circle here, Doug, as you look forward into the new year, from your unique perch as editor of the Deseret News, give us one thing you're keeping your eye on that we should be watching for as we roll into 2023 or 2024.
I think the issues that are in the culture wars, but certainly up on college campuses, the most interesting things are happening. DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion. What's going to be the result of that? Taylor Randall's working very hard to create a wonderful university at the University of Utah, and it certainly is that. We have a legislative session now where universities, all the universities, state universities, they need money. And we just learned this week about, no one should be forced to sign, any kind of declaration related to DEI. So that's going to continue to be part of the conversation. That's what I'm looking for, as well as, who's going to be running for president, who we're going to vote for, and how's that all going to shake out.
There is that little thing of the
little presidential election.
Of the 2024 election cycle, I think will be a big thing. Doug Wilkes, editor of the Deseret News, always appreciate you coming in studio with us, your perspective, not only for delivering us the headlines here in the state of Utah, but helping us see underneath it to get to the real reporting and understanding what's actually going on. We'll step aside. We'll be right back. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
I don't remember anything I got as a present growing up.
Oh boy, I do.
I only remember the way it made me feel.
A Christmas memory from KSL News Radio.
I'll tell you, the one gift that comes to mind for me was a Stingray bicycle.
Oh, really? I remember those.
We're talking things in the 60s that people won't relate to today.
I do for sure.
Man, I can remember that like it was yesterday.
Merry Christmas from Tim and Amanda and everyone at KSL News Radio.
In 400 AD, a forgotten time in ancient America, warrior prophet Moroni must preserve the history of his fallen nation while being hunted by a ruthless tyrant.
Where is the brave general now?
From Freestyle Releasing and Great Scott Entertainment comes
the memory of my God,
The Oath,
my faith and my freedom, my wife and my son.
The Oath, now playing in theaters. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. More information is available at oathmovie.com.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Whether it's a small clog or a larger mainline sewer drain issue, the experienced technicians at Yes are ready to solve all of your drain problems. Take advantage of our 83 or It's Free mainline drain clearing special. Feel secure knowing the trusted professionals at Yes guarantee that if we can't clear it, you don't pay for it. Visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
Are you one of those people? You know, self-driven, confident, love sales and understanding marketing. Would you like to work with a variety of businesses, large and small, helping them succeed? Do you want to actually make the kind of money you know you should make? Are you looking for a career with an opportunity to grow?
Well, we're looking for those people.
Bonneville Salt Lake Media Group is looking for account executives from a variety of backgrounds and experience levels to connect with high-potential business opportunities for digital marketing, KSL Podcasts, KSL News Radio, 103.5 The Era, FM 100.3, and 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. It's advertising sales that will change your world. Not to mention the world-class list of benefits we're famous for. You'll work in person and remotely in a dynamic team culture with opportunities to reach audiences both locally and globally. If this is the kind of work that interests you, text careers to 57500. That's careers to 57500. Text careers to 57500.
Can't get enough University of Utah sports? Then you need Crimson Collective's Utah FTW 360 app. What's Crimson Collective's Utah FTW 360? It's a free app that lets you access the Utes like never before. Think player profiles, exclusive Pac-12 features, local KSL coverage, game stats and recaps, behind-the-scenes videos, and tons more. This is the perfect app for any University of Utah sports fan. So head to the App Store or Google Play Store to download Crimson Collective's Utah FTW 360 app for free today.
Deb, you may not believe this, but I actually do like to eat healthy food. I feel better when I eat healthy.
and I do feel full.
I want you to start off 2024 the right way. Log on to fedupkitchen.com and you can order clean, macro-based, low-calorie meals. Not only that, they have treats and green drinks.
And they're prepared fresh in their Salt Lake City kitchen.
Order today and they'll be ready for pickup or delivery tomorrow.
It's healthy eating made easy with Fed Up Kitchen.
You can save time, you can save money, and get results with their delicious meals. And like we said, they are made fresh daily.
And because it's the holidays, we want to make sure there's a little gift for you. You can save 20% on your first order. All you have to do is use the promo code KSL at fedupkitchen.com.
That's right. Go to fedupkitchen.com, put in promo code KSL, and you're going to get 20% off your first order.
Take the guesswork out of healthy eating. Go to fedupkitchen.com and use the promo code KSL.
Every 2 seconds, someone in Utah needs blood. Help save a life with ARUP, the sole provider to University and Huntsman Cancer Hospitals. 2 locations and donor perks. Visit utahblood.org.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. It has been a very eventful year in the world in 2023, but it's also been a landmark year for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We want to take a look back at some of the noteworthy things that have taken place during 2023 for the Church of Jesus Christ. And to do that, of course, we always turn to Sarah Jane Weaver, the executive editor of the Church News. And Sarah Jane, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much for having me today.
You should be exhausted.
It has been a remarkable year for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Let's start with President Russell M. Nelson, who turned 99 years of age in September of this year. Not slowing down, other than a little bad back issue, but he has still been at a very quick pace. Give us a sense of some of the things that he did during 2023.
Well, yes, he did turn 99 this year. On 9/9, which was such a fun thing. He's been very active on social media this year. He started the year with a social media message that asked everyone to be patient, persistent, and prayerful. I really like that sort of idea that 2023 was kicked off with that invitation. From a leader of a church who said, these times are hard. Let's be patient with each other. Let's move forward with persistence and let's be prayerful.
Yeah, and he has been one that has added a very quick pace to those P's. And one of those areas has been the temple building of the church all around the world.
Yeah, and President Nelson announced 35 new temples this year for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That brings the total of temples in the church that are announced under construction or dedicated to 335, and he's announced 46% of those during his time as prophet and leader of the church. That's 153 total.
Wow, that is a stunning number, just unbelievable. One of the things that I know you have followed and chronicled closely this year, Sarah, is missionary work in the church, and in particular, young people in the church. There's been, of course, there's the national and international narrative that young people are leaving faith traditions, that the churches are empty. Give us a sense in terms of your coverage, what you've seen in terms of the young people from the Church of Jesus Christ.
Well, this year, the church released a new missionary manual for young adults in the church who serve missions. It's called Preach My Gospel, 2nd edition. And they announced that release of that new manual at the Seminar for New Mission Leaders in late June at the Missionary Training Center in Provo. And as part of that, they did a press conference, and Elder Quentin L. Cook spoke about all that is happening in missionary work. And it really is a remarkable time because of what you said. Our young people are bucking trends. At a time when people think that young people are leaving faith, there has never been a time in history that Latter-day Saint young people have been more faithful. The church had to announce 36 new missions that will open in the summer of 2024. And right now they have 72,000 missionaries. Now, we also have a historic number of missions, 450, with those new ones announced. And so at a time when other people are saying, No, young people don't want anything to do with faith or God or worship. The church is telling a different story, and it's because Latter-day Saint youth are clinging to religion at historic rates.
That's such a fascinating number and such a counter trend to so much of what we see and hear across the country and around the world. One of the other things that you have chronicled and watched closely, there has been a real focus on religious liberty, religious freedom. Not just here in the United States, but leaders of the church have literally traveled the globe. Both senior leaders from the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, senior women leaders from the General Release Society presidents and Young Women's presidencies have traveled the world talking about the importance of religious leader and faith in the public square.
In this summer, President Camille Ann Johnson, who was Release Society General President, participated in the Notre Dame Religious Liberty Summit in London. I thought also of great significance this year was something that President Dallin H. Oaks did. Early in the year, while he was meeting with leaders in Illinois and Wisconsin, he actually addressed the church's support for the Respect for Marriage Act. And he talked about the need to provide protections for both religious expression, and in the same time said it's okay if we have to codify same-sex marriage in the process. He wants everyone to be able to practice their faith and to take their faith to the public square, not just practice it in their homes, not just say this is what we do privately, but to be able to proclaim publicly this is who we are and this is what we represent.
Yeah, we know one of the things that Elder Quentin L. Cook, who spoke in front of Parliament just a few weeks ago, also at a historic Coptic church in London, talked about some of these basic rights, these religious rights, that they aren't second-class rights. These are really some of those first freedoms.
And wasn't it great that Elder Cook got to give that address in Parliament in England, where his ideologies of religious liberty actually took root? He was a young Latter-day Saint missionary in England. He loves thinking about the Magna Carta and rights that actually were the precursor to the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights in the United States that make provisions for religious liberty and for people to practice what they believe deep in their heart. Elder Cook has also been a bridge builder in this area. He has proclaimed over and over again that people who feel accountable to God should link arms. They should work together not just to protect religious liberty for all, but to do good into society. At the end of this year, he participated with some religious leaders in New York, where he announced a joint humanitarian effort that will actually bless 42,000 young people in New York City this Christmas season.
Wow. And talking about that linking and locking arms, you and I have both seen President Nelson do that all around the world with people from Pope Francis to government leaders, business leaders, community leaders, individual citizens. And the church, of course, continues to be involved in so many different humanitarian efforts around the world. As we close out, Sarah, give us a sense of some of those that stood out for you in terms of areas where the church has been linking and locking arms to do good, to provide relief, and to make a difference in communities.
Well, the church has continued its effort in childhood nutrition around the globe. We saw Sister Camille Johnson and Sister Susan Porter promote childhood nutrition during a trip to the Philippines this year. I also think that we have continued an effort with humanitarian response across the globe. And nowhere was that more evident than in Hawaii after wildfire struck Maui. And the church pledged $1 million to the Red Cross in response to those fires.
Fantastic. And so many different things that continue to happen and to move. Why don't you give us just one thing in our last minute here, Sarah Jane, something that surprised you this year as you cover a global church, over 17 million members in 170 plus countries. Give us a sense of something that was a little bit of a surprise to you this year as you covered the church.
I don't know if it was a surprise to me, but it was a thrilling moment to stand in Times Square and see the nativity represented on billboards across Times Square. as part of the church's Light the World campaign. They did some filming in Times Square. They have a video that is beautiful that reflects that movement. And in a half-hour period, they took over many of the billboards for this Light the World campaign and portrayed the Nativity with a huge digital star in the middle. And I loved that idea that in a place that's chaotic and busy, they took the Prince of Peace and they put him up. And it really did cause a pause. Before those billboards lit up, there was a moment where everything was dark and everybody stopped to take notice of what happened, and then they were filled with light. And isn't that what we want during these dark times, is to have a world filled with light?
Yeah. Great perspective as always. Sarah Jane Weaver, executive editor of the Church News, and someone we always look to as our inside source. Thanks for an extraordinary year. We look forward to big things to come in 2024 and beyond. Sarah Jane Weaver, executive editor for the Church News. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll go ahead and step aside for some bottom of the hour news, but don't go anywhere. All through this week, we've been going back to some of our favorite conversations of the year. Coming up, my conversation with Jonathan Rauch, an atheist committed to religious liberty. You don't want to miss it. We'll look back coming up next. Stick around.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour, a Christmas miracle in Utah counties helping hundreds of families in need. KSL News Radio's Brett Johnson has more.
Earlier this week, over 350 families that had applied for Sub for Santa would not be receiving it, partly because of the record high number of applicants. But once news spread, the community stepped in. As of last night, all families have been taken care of with some donations left over just in case.
President of the Utah County United Way, Bill Holterstrom, wants to thank everybody who he says made this Christmas miracle possible. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Justice Department says it's conducting more than 100 investigations into threats to the U.S. related to the Israel-Hamas war. ABC's Andy Field has the latest.
The Justice Department says the large number of possible terrorist threats against the U.S. related to the war in Gaza is straining police resources. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco telling ABC News those threats are not just against Muslim and Jewish Americans. The FBI also investigating possible lone wolves and groups targeting political and government officials, and that this week alone, they track threats against a Supreme Court justice, FBI agents, and 3 presidential candidates.
And your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing the trading day up 322 points. And the NASDAQ up 185 on the day. S&P 500 was up 48. And our KSL weather, we haven't quite shaken off the inversion yet. That's next. KSL News Time 2:31.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
This holiday season, visit Boot Barn for top quality gifts that pay tribute to the lasting heritage of the West. From handcrafted cowboy boots and American-made felt hats to hand-stitched leather jackets, our in-store experts will help guide you as you shop, assisting with boot fitting and providing complimentary hat shaping. This holiday, share a piece of the American spirit. Boot Barn. Unwrap the West.
Imagine how inconvenient your life would be without power. No lights, no refrigeration, no heating or cooling, and no electronics. But with a Generac home standby generator, you'll have the power when you need it most. Generac generators automatically provide backup after sensing a power outage, so your life goes on uninterrupted. Schedule a free quote today with Genco Generators, your premier Generac service dealer in Utah. Call 801-295-0872 or online at gencogenerators.net.
Hi, this is Bill Wyatt, Executive Director for the Salt Lake City Department of Airports. The holiday travel season is a busy one here at Salt Lake City International, and with all the new features and amenities at the airport, your holiday travel experience here promises to be better than ever. As we continue to expand and grow, our passengers are experiencing more flights to more destinations, along with more restaurants and shops to enjoy, plus more amazing views and unique art installations. And coming soon, in fall 2024, you'll have shorter walking distances between concourses A and B when the central tunnel opens. With so much new to see and do here, I'd like to invite you to arrive early. Relax, take in our festive decor, and start enjoying your holidays right here with us. To learn more about all the new things the airport has to offer, visit slcairport.com. Happy holidays, everyone.
Warm up your savings this winter with a dividend rate increase from UFirst. For a limited time, any UFirst certificate opened with new money qualifies for a 0.25 rate increase on top of the prevailing rate. You can open most certificates with as little as $500. Don't let your savings go cold. Start earning more dividends on the full balance of your certificate today. Visit a UFirst branch to open a new certificate with an automatic 0.25% rate increase. Learn more at ufirstcu.com. Federally insured by NCUA.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Michelle Rowe.
We're actually at emergency traffic. This is southbound I-15 due to debris that was in the road just prior to Bangerter Highway, blocking the 3 left lanes. They had to shut that down a couple of times. So you can expect those delays to start right prior to 106 South in Sandy. They have moved that debris now, but it's going to take a few minutes to clear that out. Get your photos with Santa at Jordan Landing Shopping Center this holiday season, located in the Entertainment Plaza across from Cinemark. Check out jordanlanding.com for hours and additional details. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, partly cloudy with air quality decreasing today and tomorrow. The high gets up to around 50 degrees. Our next chance for snow is Saturday, and Christmas looks like it'll be cold and dry. 50 degrees, partly cloudy right now. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
On Utah's home for elevated conversation.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As we're drawing close to Christmas and New Year, and as we approach 2024, all of us here at Inside Sources have been reflecting on the most thought-provoking, powerful interviews of 2023. So as we go throughout this week, we're going to share some of our favorites from 2023. Earlier this year, in June, I had an amazing, mind-bending conversation for me with Jonathan Rausch. Jonathan is a senior fellow at the Governance Studies program for the Brookings Institution. He's an author, journalist, and activist. In our discussion, we explored the relationship between the democratic and religious institutions in our country and how our secular and religious cultures must intersect in order for our democracy to remain healthy. He began with his very unique perspective on religion, secularism, what it means for the future of freedom.
Well, my perspective is a bit unusual because I am an atheistic homosexual Jew, and so I am very much an outsider. But I am also someone who believes that our democracy does not function well if religion and secular politics don't have mutually supportive values. I'm not saying religion should be politicized or that politics should be deified, just the opposite. But I am saying that these two very different forces are both crucial to making the American experiment work, and the founders thought so too. So recently the work I've been doing is to try to understand how Christianity can get along better with democracy than it's doing right now.
This is such important work, and I love the way you've framed that in terms of these two components, religion and those institutions, and the politics and the governing and all of that, and those institutions. And just dig into that a little bit deeper for us, Jonathan, in terms of what is it that those two things need to be separated from, and what do they need to be united around?
Well, I used to be, in my youth, much more of a kind of ACLU-style secularist. I had nothing against religion. Of course, although I'm an atheist, I was never a militant atheist. But I really did believe in kind of the wall of separation between church and state. So So the only thing that religion should ask of government is to leave it alone, and the only thing that government should ask of religion is really nothing. And I came to see over time that the problem there is that the political system, the Constitution, is not designed to give us our basic values in life. I mean, it's about politics. It's about how we compromise, how we legislate, how we come together as a polity. But as the founders said to whoever would listen, none of those processes work if people hate each other so much that they don't want to come together, or if people believe the other side is so dangerous that they don't want to compromise with them and, in fact, just want to defeat them and drive them out of the country. And more Americans were believing that, and unfortunately, more and more Protestant Christians, evangelicals, were believing that, getting swept up in the culture wars, being politicized, becoming the base of the MAGA movement. And then we also saw that seculars, in the progressive world, were increasingly saying, well, let's take away the tax breaks for religious organizations, and let's not give them any space at all to, for example, distinguish between gay marriage and straight marriage. And so that became a collision, and that's a dangerous collision for democracy, because democracy relies on supporting values coming out of our religious traditions. I'm not saying they're not separate. I'm not saying you have to believe in God to be democratic, but you do need to try to align those two forces better than they're aligned right now, when they're started to really pull apart.
Yeah, I think that's such a crucial part of the conversation. And as you were sharing that, Jonathan, I was thinking back to an interview I did with Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs from the UK just before he passed away. And he talked about that.
Yeah, great man.
Yeah, an amazing thinker and writer, and ended up being one of his last interviews before he passed away. But he talked about this idea that the institutions of government are not, as you just said, not designed to deliver those values, that it could deliver a maximum of choice but a minimum of meaning, and that we had to go beyond just the politics, and we can't let the politics overtake the religion or the religion become centric in politics. And so as you look at how we have those conversations, I think this is something you do extraordinarily well, is get people into a space to have a different kind of conversation, both about our politics and about our religion.
Well, that's the hope. I'm so much of an outsider that I'll never be influential in these worlds, but I am heartened by the beginnings of movements from within the evangelical Protestant world to begin to say, hey, wait a minute. I mean, it's no good to have Christ-like values in your personal life and then be cruel, dominating, and just nasty in your political life. And so people are increasingly saying, wait, these values are all of a piece. We need to bring more Christian values into the way we do politics. I'm very encouraged to see the LDS Church is, I think, turning itself into a leader in that space. And I also hope that we can see, maybe even are seeing, the beginning of more awareness on the secular, not the extreme progressive left, not the radical people, but in more like the center left, the world of mainstream liberal Democrats, a better understanding that religion has got to be part of the equation of keeping this country healthy, that, you can't replace it with soul cycle.
Yeah, that's such an important piece. I was thinking we had former Governor Mike Leavitt, former HHS secretary, and he was giving a speech about the economics of goodness, and actually had an interesting back and forth with some renowned economists about the economics of goodness. And one stood up and said, you're turning in this to a religious discussion. And then just as Governor Leavitt was trying to think of a comeback or how to respond, another economist stood up and similarly said, no, it's not about religion. I'm an atheist. This is about human behavior and the absolute predictability of consequences. That someone who is honest is going to get into less trouble than someone who cheats. Someone who's kind is going to have more friends than someone who's cruel. Societies that look out for each other are going to have less crime and more opportunity and upward mobility than those that don't. And I think it is that economics of goodness that you're pointing to that often gets lost in the very polarized space that you just described.
Yes, and that's exactly right. There's now reams and reams of evidence from sociology and social sciences that participation in religious communities, not just belief, that doesn't do it, but participating, showing up, being part of those communities makes people psychologically and emotionally healthier. It makes them physically healthier. It leads to better outcomes in terms of the community and giving and less crime. And humans need to feel like we're participating in something transcendent, bigger than themselves. Now, I might be an exception. I've never believed in God. I've never felt a need to. I think I'm a person of at least medium character, even though I'm an atheist, and lots of secular people are wonderful people.
Yeah.
But for society as a whole, if you don't have these institutions that are able to transmit these values, create a sense of community, show up on your doorstep if something has gone wrong, then you get a lot of people who get isolated and a sense of meaninglessness and drift, and then they're easy prey for demagogues and outrage artists.
Big thanks to Jonathan Rausch for his insight. Truly one of the great conversations we had this past year. We're going to step aside for a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to stay with some of our favorite conversations. We're going to go to a conversation I had with Judge Thomas Griffith. Stay with us here on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
Did you know 96% of Americans lose an average of $111,000 in Social Security income? And it's because they claim their benefits at the wrong time. Don't lose $111,000 in Social Security income that's rightfully yours. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits on Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL. News Radio 1027.
The Salt Lake Chamber is Utah's voice for business. Okay, that sounds great, but what does it really mean? Well, as Utah's largest and longest-standing business association, they support and champion community prosperity throughout the state. And if you're in business, well, that's a very good thing for you. Be sure to listen to the Chamber's Speaking on Business, weekdays at 7:20, 11:55, and 5:20 p.m. on KSL News Radio.
God, I'm so stressed about my business not being ready for the holidays.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending the Ooma cloud phone system with auto attendant and more than 35 features.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Starts at $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Visit Ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma. Smart communications for the smarter business.
The holiday season is right around the corner, so give the gift that's hard to wrap but easy to give. Give them a Stihl. With powerful trimmers, blowers, and chainsaws to place under the tree, the Stihl Holiday Gift Guide has something for everyone. Save $20 on the BGA 57 battery-powered blower. Visit your local Stihl dealer or go to stihlusa.com/gift guide. Real Stihl. Find yours. Now $179.99 was $199.99 MSRP. Offer valid for a limited time only at participating dealers while supplies last.
Transform your old, outdated kitchen with Half Price Granite. For a limited time, Half Price Granite is offering special pricing starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half Price Granite, affordable luxury.
Give the best gift a Jazz fan can get. Tickets to a Jazz game. Or treat yourself with our holiday ticket packs. Getting a pack not only gets you to a game. With every ticket purchase, you can get $15 in Jazz notes for in-arena concessions on merch at the team store. Plus, each ticket comes with a ticket to a Salt Lake City Stars game. Get your tickets now by calling or texting 801-355-DUNK. Or by visiting UtahJazz.com. Happy holidays from the Utah Jazz.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Every day this week, we've been revisiting some of our favorite conversations from 2023. Today, I wanted to highlight a compelling interview we had with our friend, former D.C. Circuit Court Judge Thomas Griffith. This was back in May. Judge Griffith has been involved in the nomination process for Supreme Court justices on both sides of the political spectrum, which has been fascinating. He's a master of bringing people together across our differences. I asked him to talk about what he's been thinking about when it comes to building bridges and creating peace. He began by pointing out the deep polarization in our country.
I feel that we are facing an existential crisis in America. I hate to start on such a gloomy note, but I think we are. I mean, the social science research tells us that never before, at least as long as social scientists have been involved in the process, never before have the divisions been deeper or wider or more serious than right now. And they're of a unique type. It's not just that people disagree. There's nothing wrong with disagreement. We're Americans.
Yeah.
I hope we're always disagreeing.
Always doing that.
We disagree in the crib, and that's good. But it's the nature of the disagreement. It's laced with contempt.
Yeah.
And that's the new element. And I think that is the most serious problem we're facing as a nation today.
Yeah.
You know, Richard Haas, the chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations, he's a foreign relations expert, has written a book recently saying the same thing. He says the greatest threat facing America isn't China, isn't Russia. Those are real threats. We ought to be worried about them. But Haas says the greatest threat facing America today is this internal political polarization.
Yeah.
We have got to get a handle on it before anything else is able to work, so America can flourish the way it's intended to. So I start with that I'm deeply concerned about the nature of the divide. What's the solution to it? The solution to it is to try and overcome it and to build these bridges of understanding.
Yeah.
It turns out, the social science research tells us, that when people work real hard to understand their opponents and what they think, they don't necessarily change their mind about the issue, because I'm for X, you're for Y. I'll do everything I can to understand why you're for Y and not for X. You're probably not going to change my mind. But one thing does change when you have those sorts of efforts to understand one another, and that is, I'm not going to think you're a jerk anymore.
That's right.
I'm not going to think you're immoral. I'm not going to think you're a bad person.
Yeah.
I'm just going to think you're a person that disagrees with me.
Sees it different,
And that's a much healthier place to be. And it's really just echoing what Lincoln taught us in the first inaugural, when he said, we are not enemies, but friends.
Friends,
We must not be enemies.
Yeah, and Jefferson said that, we can never mistake a disagreement or a difference on policy to be a difference of principle. And learning to have, I think part of that building comes as we maintain that curiosity. I think loss of curiosity is part of this whole process, because if I can't even think, I wonder why Tom thinks about it that way, or I wonder why she thinks that's the best solution to that issue. Curiosity, the lack of curiosity, we're so wrapped into our own social media bubbles that are usually filled with that contempt, that if we can't even ask, I wonder why they think that's a good idea.
And I know you had Tim Shriver on your show recently, and last night I heard him give a magnificent speech at the commencement ceremonies at the University of Utah, and he made a lot of profound points. But the one that stuck with me most is this curiosity you're talking about. It comes from a sense that each human has dignity, right? And so if we recognize that every human has dignity that we ought to respect, you will be curious about why they have these crazy views that they have.
Exactly.
Again, you're not going to change your view about it, but you're going to realize, no, that's a real person who comes by that belief sincerely, honestly, and I'm not going to hate you for it.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to take you down a path that we went down with Tim yesterday, and that's this idea that we have been so conditioned around these negative base emotions of anger, fear, frustration, and all of those have their genesis in fear.
Yes.
And so I've started in my own personal world, when I start feeling that contempt juice flowing a little bit, or I'm starting to think, oh, they're not just wrong, but they're wrong and evil. My question to myself is always, what am I afraid of? And you've seen this at the highest levels of power in government. And, of course, often what they're most afraid of is losing power or losing that position.
I'm afraid that's what I have to report. and I don't know how you overcome that. That's a necessary consequence of having elections in a democracy. So I think that's always going to be with us. Here's my hopeful view, is that if the electorate insists that our public officials, that our elected officials treat one another with dignity. If that becomes a requirement of it, maybe we'll get some change.
And I think part of that building of that part of the bridge is not going to come from those elected officials. This is one of those community and culture leads, and the politicians will follow.
Absolutely.
If we change the expectation.
No, this is If we're looking to Washington for the solution on this, that is not the place to look. Is your home, your neighborhood, your community. And here's the really good news about that. When people get involved in those small platoons, that Tocqueville called them, of community organizing and school boards and PTAs, when you get involved there, you actually can have a big impact by the way you interact with your neighbors and friends. You can't have that impact on social media or on TV. It's when you get to know someone. Right. It's the small group dynamics. All the social science data shows us it's small group dynamics in which this change takes place. So that's good news, but it's bad news. The bad news means we have to get involved.
We've got to engage.
We've got to get involved. We can't sit back, watch cable.